While serving a millionaire in a meeting with investors, the waitress said 3 words in Chinese. Then the deal was canceled, and the millionaire made her an offer. The crystal glasses caught the golden light of the chandeliers as Rachel Zamin Baker moved silently between the tables of the golden room, her steps as calculated as everything else in her carefully constructed life. For 2 years, she'd perfected the art of being invisible. Just another pretty face serving overpriced wine to Chicago's business elite. But tonight, like every other night, her dark eyes were hunting. She paused at table 7, refilling water glasses while her ears tuned into the conversation between 2 hedge fund managers discussing their latest acquisition. Numbers danced through the air. Millions, billions. Amounts that would have made her younger self dizzy with excitement. Now they barely registered. She was listening for something else entirely. "Excuse me, miss." The voice belonged to Marcus Chen, a real estate mogul who'd been coming here for months. "Could we get another bottle of the 98 Bordeaux?" "Of course, sir." Rachel's smile was practiced, professional, forgettable, right away. As she walked toward the wine cellar, her reflection caught in the mirrored walls, and for a split second, she saw her father's eyes staring back at her. Zamin Wei Ming had possessed the same intense gaze, the same ability to see through people's facades. He would have been proud of how far she'd come in her deception. Though he probably would have questioned her methods, the memory hit her like it always did. Sudden and brutal. Shanghai, 5 years ago. The sound of splintering wood as the door to their penthouse exploded inward. Her father's voice, calm even in the face of death. "Rachel, go now. Remember what I taught you about survival." She'd been 21 then. A spoiled heiress who thought the world revolved around designer handbags and charity galas. She'd hidden in the panic room, watching through security cameras as 3 men in expensive suits cornered her father in his study. The conversation had been brief, conducted in rapid Mandarin. "You know too much, Wei Ming, and you know I'll never stop talking." The gunshot had echoed through the hidden speakers with a finality that shattered her old life completely. Rachel shook herself back to the present, her hands steady as she selected the wine. The grief had been her companion for so long that it felt like a second heartbeat. Constant, reliable, driving her forward when nothing else could. The golden room had been her choice after months of research. David Grant ate here every Thursday, always at table 12, always ordering the salmon and a glass of Macallan 25. He was a creature of habit, which made him predictable. Predictable meant vulnerable. She'd studied him like a dissertation. David Grant, 42, CEO of Grant Technologies, divorced father of 1 daughter. On paper, he looked like every other successful businessman who frequented this place. Clean record, charitable donations, the kind of guy who probably coached Little League on weekends. But Rachel knew better. She knew about his connections to Golden Dragon Corporation, the Chinese conglomerate that had been slowly infiltrating American tech companies for the past decade. The same company whose executives had murdered her father. Rachel, Tony, the head waiter, snapped his fingers near her face. "You're spacing out again. Table 12 wants to see a wine menu." Table 12. Her pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. On it, she glanced across the dining room, and there he was, David Grant, looking exactly like his photos, but somehow more human in person. His brown hair was slightly messed up, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there were stress lines around his blue eyes that hadn't been visible in the corporate headshots she'd memorized. He was dining alone tonight, which was unusual. Normally he brought clients or business partners. Rachel approached his table with the wine menu, her movements graceful and unremarkable. She'd spent years learning how to blend in, how to be the kind of person people looked through rather than at. "Good evening, Mr. Grant. Tony mentioned you wanted to see our wine selection." David looked up, and for a moment their eyes met. She felt a strange flutter in her chest. Not part of the plan. He had kind eyes, she realized, tired, but kind. "Actually, I think I'll just stick with my usual Macallan 25 neat." "Of course. Anything else I can get for you tonight?" He hesitated, studying her face. "Have we met before? You look familiar." Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs, but her smile never wavered. "I don't think so, sir. I'd remember." He nodded slowly, but his gaze lingered on her features, the high cheekbones she'd inherited from her father, the unusual combination of Asian and Western features that made her face memorable, despite her best efforts to remain forgettable, as she walked away to get his drink. Rachel's mind raced. Had she blown her cover somehow? 2 years of careful planning and one casual conversation might have ruined everything. She'd come to Chicago with nothing but a new identity and a burning need for justice. The fake papers had cost her most of her hidden savings, money she'd managed to transfer to offshore accounts before fleeing Shanghai. Rachel Zamin Baker didn't exist until she'd created her, complete with a backstory about being a struggling actress who waited tables to pay rent. The truth was far more complicated. She was the sole heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire, daughter of one of Asia's most powerful businessmen. But Zemin Weiming was dead, and his daughter had died with him that night in Shanghai. What remained was something harder, sharper, a weapon forged in grief and tempered by rage. She poured David's whiskey with steady hands, adding exactly 1 ice cube the way he preferred it. Tomorrow, she'd found out, he was meeting with Golden Dragon's American representatives. The deal they were negotiating was worth $500 million, and if her intelligence was correct, it would give the Chinese corporation access to military-grade encryption technology that could be used to hurt a lot of innocent people, technology that her father had died trying to keep out of their hands. Rachel carried the glass back to table 12, her decision crystallizing with each step. Phase 1 of her plan had been infiltration. Get close to David Grant, learn his routines, understand his weaknesses. Phase 2 would begin tomorrow. "You're McCallan, sir." "Thank you." He paused, waiting for her name. "Rachel." "Thank you, Rachel." His smile was genuine, and again she felt that unexpected flutter. "You know, I've been coming here for 3 years, and you're the first server who's ever remembered how I like my whiskey. Because I've been studying you for 2 years," she thought. Out loud, she said, "Attention to detail is important in this business. It's important in every business." David raised his glass in a small toast. "To attention to detail." Rachel nodded politely and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Rachel, that meeting I have tomorrow, do you know if the private dining room will be available?" Her pulse spiked. He was talking about the Golden Dragon meeting. "I believe so, sir. Would you like me to check with management?" "Please, it's an important deal. Could change everything." "You have no idea," Rachel thought, studying his face. There was something in his expression, hope mixed with desperation, like a man drowning who'd just spotted a life preserver. "I'll make sure everything is perfect for you, Mr. Grant." As she walked away, Rachel felt the familiar weight of her father's jade pendant beneath her uniform, the only thing she'd managed to grab before fleeing Shanghai. Tomorrow, David Grant would sit down with the men who destroyed her family. Never knowing that their waitress was about to destroy them all, the game was about to begin. David Grant stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the Chicago skyline blur through rain-streaked windows. The city looked different when you were about to lose everything, smaller somehow, like it was already pulling away from you. He'd built his empire from nothing, clawing his way up from a cramped apartment in Southside to this glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. Now it all hung in the balance of one meeting. His phone buzzed. "Mr. Grant, the Golden Dragon representatives have confirmed for 2 o'clock. His assistant Jennifer's voice crackled through the speaker. "Thank you, and Jennifer. Hold all my calls during the meeting. No interruptions." "Of course, sir." David loosened his tie and tried to push down the knot of anxiety in his stomach. $500 million. The number had been bouncing around his head for weeks like a pinball, hitting every nerve ending. It wasn't just money, it was salvation. Grant Technologies was hemorrhaging cash faster than he could raise it, and the Golden Dragon deal was his last shot at keeping the company afloat. More importantly, it was Chloe's last shot. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo of his 12-year-old daughter, taken just last month before her latest hospital stay. She was grinning despite the IV tube in her arm, making bunny ears behind the head of her favorite nurse. That smile had cost him everything he had and everything he didn't have. The experimental treatments weren't covered by insurance, and even his substantial wealth had limits when faced with a rare genetic disorder that required cutting-edge medicine available only in specialized facilities. The Golden Dragon connection had started innocently enough, a research partnership that promised breakthrough funding for rare disease treatments. But innocent had a way of becoming complicated when you were desperate enough to make deals with people who operated in the shadows. David shook his head and pocketed the phone. Today wasn't about moral complexity. Today was about closing the deal that would save his daughter's life. Meanwhile, across town at the Golden Room, Rachel was having her own complicated morning. She'd arrived 2 hours early, claiming she needed to help with prep work for a large private party. In reality, she needed time to plant the listening devices she'd acquired through channels that definitely weren't legal. "You're here early again," Tony observed, wiping down glasses behind the bar. "Everything okay at home?" Rachel forced a laugh. "Just need the extra hours. Rent in this city is brutal." It was a good cover story. The struggling actress narrative she'd crafted allowed for erratic schedules and occasional mysterious absences. Tony had never questioned why someone with her obvious intelligence and poise was slinging plates instead of starring in movies. She moved through the private dining room with practiced efficiency, checking the table settings while discreetly placing tiny recording devices under the lip of the mahogany table. The technology was impressive, smaller than a pencil eraser, and virtually undetectable, unless you knew exactly where to look. She'd learned about surveillance equipment the hard way, during those first desperate months after Shanghai when every shadow might have been an assassin sent to finish what they'd started. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was using the same tactics her father's killers probably used to track their targets. "Miss Baker." A new voice made her freeze. She turned to find a tall man in an expensive suit watching her from the doorway. He was Asian, probably Korean, with the kind of predatory stillness that made her skin crawl. "Yes. Can I help you?" "I'm here for the setup, 2 o'clock meeting." His English was perfect, but something about his smile reminded her of the men who'd killed her father. Polite on the surface, dangerous underneath. "Of course, we'll have everything ready." Rachel's voice was steady, professional. Inside, every instinct screamed at her to run. "Can I get you anything while you wait?" "Just water, no ice." She nodded and headed for the kitchen, her pulse hammering. This was really happening. After 5 years of planning, she was finally in the same room as people connected to Golden Dragon Corporation. The urge to grab a knife from the kitchen and end it all right here was almost overwhelming, but she'd learned patience the hard way. Revenge served. Cold was revenge served properly. By 1:45, the private dining room was set up perfectly. Rachel had volunteered to handle the service personally, claiming she needed the experience with high-profile clients. Tony had agreed readily. He hated dealing with what he called the international crowd. Anyway, David arrived first, looking impeccable in a charcoal gray suit, but carrying tension in every line of his body. Rachel watched him through the service window as he checked his phone, ran his hands through his hair, and straightened his already perfect tie twice. "Nervous?" she asked, entering with a water pitcher. He looked up, and again she caught that flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who spends a lot of time watching people." The truth slipped out before she could stop it. "Occupational hazard of waitressing. Something like that." She poured his water, noting the slight tremor in his hands. "Big deal today." David hesitated. There was something about this waitress that made him want to confide in her. Maybe it was the way she really listened, or the intelligence behind her eyes that seemed too sharp for someone just serving tables. "The biggest of my career. Everything depends on it." Rachel felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. Whatever David Grant had done, whatever his connection to her father's killers, he was clearly suffering. The thought irritated her. Sympathy wasn't part of the plan. "I'm sure it'll go well," she said, stepping back as voices approached from the hallway. 3 men entered the room, and Rachel's blood turned to ice water. She recognized 2 of them from the security footage she'd studied obsessively. Liu Wei and Chen Zhao, executives from Golden Dragon's American operations. The third was younger. Third was probably someone's son being groomed for the family business. Liu Wei spoke first, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Mr. Grant, thank you for meeting with us on such short notice." "Gentlemen," David stood, extending his hand. "Please, have a seat." Rachel retreated to the corner, playing the part of invisible service staff while her mind raced. These were the people who'd given the order to kill her father. They were sitting 15 feet away from her, discussing business like civilized human beings, and she had to serve them lunch and smile. "The terms we discussed are still acceptable." Chen Zhao pulled out a thick folder. "More than acceptable. I have the technology specifications you requested. and my team is ready to begin the transfer process immediately upon funding. Rachel's training kicked in. The language lessons her father had insisted upon suddenly proving their worth. The men occasionally lapsed into Mandarin, probably assuming the American waitress couldn't understand them. But she could understand every word, and what she heard made her realize that this deal was even worse than she'd thought. They weren't just buying David's technology. They were planning to steal it, bankrupt his company, and eliminate any loose ends that might cause problems later. David Grant wasn't their partner. He was their mark, just like her father had been. Rachel moved through the motions of serving lunch with mechanical precision, but her mind was spinning like a roulette wheel. Every instinct screamed at her to stick to the plan. Let David Grant get destroyed by these men, then pick up the pieces of her revenge from the wreckage. But listening to their casual discussion of betrayal and murder, watching David's hopeful face as he explained his technology, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 years. Moral confusion. The encryption algorithms are revolutionary, David was saying, sliding a tablet across the table. Military-grade security with commercial applications. Your investment would give Golden Dragon exclusive licensing rights in Asian markets. Liu Wei examined the screen with predatory interest. Impressive. And you're confident this technology isn't available elsewhere? Completely unique. My team has been developing it for 3 years. Chen Zhao leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing at his lips. Mr. Grant, I think we can do business. That's when they made their fatal mistake. Liu Wei turned to Chen Zhao and spoke in rapid Mandarin, his voice low but not low enough. Once we have the complete specifications, we eliminate him, make it look like a heart attack. Stress from the company failing. Chen Zhao nodded. And the technology, we take everything, his patents, his research, his entire operation. The daughter's medical bills will bankrupt the estate anyway. Clean and simple. Rachel's hand tightened on the coffee pot she was holding. They were talking about murdering David exactly the way they'd murdered her father, and they were discussing his daughter like she was a business expense to be written off. The third man, who'd been silent until now, shifted uncomfortably. Are we certain this is necessary? The man is desperate. He'll take whatever terms we offer. Witnesses are liabilities, Liu Wei replied coldly, especially ones who understand the technology they're selling. Better to own it completely than worry about loose ends. David was oblivious to the conversation happening 3 feet away from him, focused on pulling up additional files on his tablet. I think you'll find the security applications particularly interesting. Rachel felt the familiar rage building in her chest, the same fury that had sustained her through 5 years of planning. But this time it wasn't just about her father. These men were about to destroy an innocent man and leave his sick daughter an orphan, all for the sake of stealing technology they could probably just buy legitimately. She thought about 12-year-old Chloe Grant, probably sitting in a hospital room right now, trusting that her father would find a way to save her. She thought about David's tired eyes and genuine smile. She thought about her father's voice on that last night. Rachel, sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to change course. The decision crystallized in her mind, like ice forming on a window. Rachel set down the coffee pot and approached the table with a fresh water pitcher. As she leaned over to refill Liu Wei's glass, she let her voice drop to barely a whisper and spoke 3 words in perfect Mandarin. Ta zhidao zhenxiang. He knows the truth. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Liu Wei's face went white, his hand freezing halfway to his water glass. Chen Zhao's eyes darted between Rachel and David, panic flickering across his features. The younger man actually pushed back from the table, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. What did you say? Liu Wei demanded in English, his composure cracking. Rachel blinked innocently, switching back to her perfect American accent. I'm sorry, sir. Did I disturb you? I was just refilling your water. But the damage was done. In their world, paranoia was a survival tool, and 3 words from an unknown waitress who somehow spoke fluent Mandarin was enough to trigger every alarm bell they had. David looked around the table, confused by the sudden tension. Is everything all right? Did I miss something? Liu Wei stood abruptly, his face a mask of controlled fury. Mr. Grant, we need to postpone this meeting. Something urgent has come up. Postpone? But we were just about to finalize the terms. I said we need to postpone. Liu Wei's voice carried the kind of authority that had probably ended more than one conversation permanently. He gathered his papers with sharp, angry movements, Chen Zhao was already on his phone, speaking in rapid Chinese to someone on the other end. Rachel caught fragments. Emergency extraction. Compromised operation. Abort immediately. I don't understand. David stood as well, desperation creeping into his voice. If there's a problem with the proposal, we can adjust the terms. This deal is crucial for both our companies. Mr. Grant, Liu Wei's smile was cold as winter rain. Perhaps it's better that you understand now. Some deals are too dangerous to complete, good day. The three men filed out of the dining room like they were fleeing a fire, leaving David standing alone at the table, staring after them in complete bewilderment. Rachel began clearing the table with studied casualness, watching David's face cycle through confusion, anger, and finally dawning horror as he realized what had just happened. His salvation had walked out the door, taking his daughter's future with it. I need a drink, he said quietly. The bar doesn't open for another hour, but I could get you something from the kitchen. No, I mean a real drink, the kind that makes you forget your life is falling apart. He ran his hands through his hair, making it stick up at odd angles. 5 minutes ago, I was about to save my company. Now I don't even know what just happened. Rachel made a decision that would change both their lives. Mr. Grant, could I speak with you privately? David looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're just a waitress. No, I'm not. Something in her tone made him pay attention. The polite professional mask she'd worn for 2 years slipped just enough to let him see the intelligence and steel underneath. Who are you? Someone who knows more about Golden Dragon Corporation than you think, and someone who might be able to help you get out of this mess. Rachel glanced toward the door to make sure they were alone. But first, you need to understand that those men weren't planning to honor any deal with you. They were going to steal your technology and kill you. David's face went pale. That's insane. This is Chicago, not some third world country. People don't just murder businessmen. Tell that to my father. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. David studied her face, really studied it this time, and she could see the moment recognition finally clicked. You're Chinese or part Chinese? Half. My father was Zemin Weiming. She watched David's expression change as the name registered. Anyone who'd done business in Asia over the past decade knew that name. The shipping magnate, but he died in Shanghai 5 years ago. Car accident, I thought. Murdered by Golden Dragon Corporation. Rachel's voice was steady, but her eyes blazed with old fury. And now they're planning to do the same thing to you. David sank back into his chair like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. This is impossible. It's a legitimate business deal. I've been working with their American representatives for months. Mr. Grant, I just saved your life. The question now is, do you want to save your company? He looked up at her. This mysterious waitress who'd just revealed herself to be the daughter of one of Asia's most powerful businessmen, and asked the only question that mattered. What do you want in return? Rachel smiled, and for the first time in 5 years, it was completely genuine. I want to destroy them, all of them, and I think you're exactly the partner I've been looking for. 3 hours later, David Grant sat in his office staring at a woman who had completely upended his understanding of reality. Rachel had shed her waitress uniform for a sleek black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, and the transformation was startling. Gone was the humble server. In her place sat someone who clearly belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. So let me get this straight, David said, loosening his tie for the 3rd time. You're the heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire. You've been planning revenge for 5 years, and you've been serving me coffee for 2 years just to get close to me. That's the simplified version, yes. Rachel crossed her legs and regarded him with those unsettling dark eyes. Though technically, I've been serving you whiskey. You're not much of a coffee drinker. This is insane. Yesterday, I was a businessman trying to save my company. Today, I find out I'm surrounded by international criminals and vengeful heiresses pretending to be waitresses. Rachel's expression softened slightly. I know it's a lot to process, but David, those men were going to kill you, not maybe, not probably. Definitely. I heard them planning it. The use of his first name sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. For 2 years, she'd called him Mr. Grant, with professional distance. This felt different, more intimate somehow. Why should I trust you? How do I know you're not just another player in whatever game this is? Because if I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. Rachel's voice was matter of fact, not threatening. I've had hundreds of opportunities over the past 2 years. Instead, I just saved your life. David had to admit, the logic was sound, even if everything else about this situation defied logic entirely. Assuming I believe you, and I'm not saying I do, what exactly are you proposing? Rachel leaned forward, and he caught a hint of expensive perfume that definitely didn't come from a waitress's salary. I know everything about Golden Dragon Corporation, their operations, their money laundering schemes, their methods of eliminating problems. What I don't have is legitimate access to the American business world or the resources to take them down from the outside. And you think I do. I know you do. Grant Technologies has government contracts, Pentagon connections, relationships with half the Fortune 500. You're exactly the kind of insider who could expose their operations from within. David stood and walked to his window, watching the afternoon traffic crawl along Lakeshore Drive. Even if what you're saying is true, I can't just declare war on a Chinese corporation. I have responsibilities, employees who depend on me. You have a daughter who depends on you. The words hit him like a physical blow. He spun around. How do you know about Chloe? I know about her condition. I know about the medical bills that are bankrupting you. I know that's why you got involved with Golden Dragon in the first place. Rachel's voice was gentle but relentless. They promised to fund her treatment in exchange for your cooperation, didn't they? David's silence was answer enough. They're using your daughter's illness to control you, David. The same way they've controlled dozens of other desperate people. My father discovered evidence of their operations. Children held hostage through medical debt. Executives blackmailed through manufactured scandals. Politicians compromised through elaborately staged situations. Your father found evidence. He found everything. Names, dates, financial records, video evidence. Golden Dragon isn't just a corporation. It's a criminal organization that uses legitimate business as cover for human trafficking, money laundering, and worse. Rachel pulled out a tablet and swiped through several documents. This is just a fraction of what he compiled before they killed him. David moved closer to look at the screen, and Rachel caught his scent. Expensive cologne mixed with stress sweat, and something uniquely masculine that made her pulse quicken unexpectedly. She pushed the feeling aside. Physical attraction wasn't part of the plan. These financial records, they show payments to American politicians, senators, congressmen, federal judges. Golden Dragon has been buying influence for years. Rachel swiped to another document. And here, shipping manifests that don't match customs declarations. They're smuggling something, probably drugs or weapons. David studied the evidence, his business mind automatically analyzing the implications. If this is real, it's not just corporate crime. This is national security. Now, you're beginning to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. David looked at her sharply. I haven't agreed to anything yet. Rachel stood and moved to stand beside him at the window. She was tall enough that she only had to look up slightly to meet his eyes. David, your company is going to fail. Without the Golden Dragon investment, you'll be bankrupt within 6 months. Your daughter's treatment will stop, and she'll die. The brutal honesty was like a slap, but she continued before he could respond. Or, you can help me destroy the people who are responsible for both our problems. I have resources, more money than you can imagine, connections throughout Asia, and 5 years' worth of intelligence on our enemies. Together, we can save your company, fund Chloe's treatment, and make sure Golden Dragon never hurts another family. And what's to stop them from just killing us both? They can't kill what they can't find. I've been invisible for 5 years, David. I can teach you how to hide in plain sight while we work. David was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city he'd called home for 20 years. Everything Rachel was saying sounded like something out of a spy movie, but he couldn't deny the evidence she'd shown him. And more importantly, he couldn't deny that she was right about his situation. Without the Golden Dragon deal, Chloe would die. It was that simple. If I agree to this, and I'm still not saying I will, what would you need from me? Rachel smiled, and David felt that strange flutter in his chest again. Access to your Pentagon contacts, your government connections, and your reputation as a legitimate businessman. We're going to rebuild your company from the ground up, but this time, we're going to do it by taking Golden Dragon apart piece by piece. How? We're going to beat them at their own game. Corporate espionage, financial warfare, strategic media manipulation, everything they've been doing to innocent people, we're going to do to them. Rachel's eyes gleamed with anticipation. But we're going to do it better. David found himself nodding despite every rational thought in his head screaming that this was insane. And Chloe's treatment? Will begin immediately. I can transfer funds to cover her care for the next 5 years if necessary. Why would you do that for a stranger? Rachel's expression grew serious. Because no child should pay for their parents' mistakes. And because she hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Because I've been watching you for 2 years, David. You're a good man caught in an impossible situation. My father always said that the measure of a person isn't what they do when life is easy. It's what they do when they have no good choices left. And what choice do you think I should make? Rachel extended her hand. Trust me, help me. Let's save your daughter and destroy our enemies at the same time. David looked at her outstretched hand. Manicured nails, no jewelry except for a simple jade bracelet, fingers that looked like they belonged to someone who'd never served a day of coffee in her life. He thought about Chloe's latest medical bills. He thought about his company's dwindling bank account. He thought about Liu Wei's cold smile and the casual way they'd discussed his murder. Then he thought about the intelligence in Rachel's eyes and the steel in her voice when she'd revealed her true identity. David Grant had built his fortune by recognizing opportunities and taking calculated risks. This felt like the biggest risk of his life. He took her hand. Partners, he said. Rachel's smile could have lit up the Chicago skyline. Partners. 3 months into their partnership, David's life had transformed in ways he'd never imagined possible. Grant Technologies had not only avoided bankruptcy, but was showing its first quarterly profit in 2 years. The financial injections from Rachel's hidden accounts had been subtle, filtered through shell companies and investment funds that made the money appear to come from legitimate sources. More importantly, Chloe's treatment was working. The experimental therapy that had been financially impossible just months ago was now showing real results. Her latest blood work had been the best it had been in years, and for the first time since her diagnosis, David allowed himself to hope she might have a normal childhood. The quarterly reports look good, Rachel said, sliding a folder across the conference table in David's office. But we need to discuss the Singapore expansion. They'd fallen into a routine over the past weeks. Official business meetings during the day, clandestine planning sessions in the evenings. Rachel had rented an apartment in David's building under yet another identity, making their collaboration appear coincidental to any outside observers. The Singapore office will give us direct access to Golden Dragon's shipping routes, David replied. But he was having trouble concentrating on the logistics. Rachel was wearing a midnight blue dress that brought out the amber flecks in her dark eyes, and he'd noticed she'd started wearing her hair down instead of in the severe bun she'd favored as a waitress. David, are you listening? Sorry, He caught himself before admitting he'd been staring at her. The Singapore office, yes, that makes strategic sense. Rachel studied his face with those penetrating eyes that seemed to see straight through him. Over the months, she'd learned to read his expressions like a favorite book, the way his jaw tightened when he was frustrated, how his hands moved when he was thinking through a problem, the slight smile that appeared when he talked about Chloe. You seem distracted lately. Just tired. It's been a long week. It was a lie, and they both knew it. The truth was that David was finding it increasingly difficult to maintain professional distance from his mysterious partner. Rachel was brilliant, beautiful, and shared his drive for justice in a way that made their working relationship feel like the most natural thing in the world. But she was also dangerous, connected to a world of violence and revenge that he barely understood. Why don't we call it a night? Rachel suggested, closing her laptop. We can finish this tomorrow. Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to grab dinner. Nothing fancy, just... David realized he was asking her on a date and felt suddenly ridiculous. To discuss the Hong Kong banking connections. Rachel's pause lasted just a beat too long. I don't think that's a good idea. Business dinner. Totally professional. David. The way she said his name made his chest tighten. We can't what? Have dinner? You know what I mean? The admission hung in the air between them like a live wire. David felt his pulse quicken as he realized she'd been feeling the same tension he had. Rachel, don't. She stood abruptly, gathering her papers. This partnership works because we both have clear objectives. Anything else would be a complication we can't afford. But even as she said it, Rachel was fighting her own internal war, somewhere between the late-night strategy sessions and watching David's face light up when he talked about Chloe's progress. She'd started seeing him as more than just a tool for revenge. He was kind, devoted to his daughter, and carried himself with an integrity that was rare in her experience. It terrified her. What if I don't care about complications? David moved around the desk, stopping just close enough that she could smell his cologne. You should care. I'm not exactly girlfriend material, David. I'm planning to destroy a criminal organization that's killed people. I carry weapons and I know how to use them. I've been lying about my identity for 5 years. I know all that. Do you really understand what you're getting involved with? Rachel's voice grew heated. I'm not some mysterious woman who's going to add excitement to your suburban life. I'm damaged goods, David. I wake up every night thinking about my father's murder. I've spent 5 years planning revenge instead of building a real life. Maybe it's time to start building something real. The words hit Rachel like a physical blow. She'd been so focused on destruction that she'd forgotten construction was even possible. David, you have a daughter, a company, a future that doesn't include war with international criminals. My daughter is alive because of you. My company exists because of you. David reached out tentatively, touching her hand. Maybe my future includes whatever you need it to include. Rachel looked down at their joined hands, his larger, calloused from years of building his business from nothing, hers smaller but scarred along the knuckles from self-defense training she'd never told him about. This is a mistake, she whispered. Probably, but neither of them pulled away. The kiss, when it finally happened, was inevitable. As gravity, Rachel had been expecting it for weeks, dreading it and craving it in equal measure. David's hands framed her face gently, like she was something precious that might break if handled roughly. When they finally broke apart, Rachel's carefully constructed walls were in ruins. This changes everything, she said quietly. Good. I was getting tired of pretending it wasn't happening. Rachel laughed despite herself. You're impossible. And you're beautiful. Especially when you're not trying so hard to be scary. I am scary. I know. It's one of the things I like about you. They spent the next hour talking. Really talking. Not about business or revenge, but about themselves. David told her about his divorce, about the loneliness of building a company while watching his marriage fall apart. Rachel found herself sharing stories about her father, about growing up between two cultures, about the guilt she carried for surviving when he hadn't. Do you ever think about what happens after? David asked as they sat on his office couch, Rachel's head resting against his shoulder. After what? After we destroy Golden Dragon. After you get your revenge. What do you do then? Rachel was quiet for a long time. I honestly never thought that far ahead. For 5 years, revenge was the only future I could imagine. And now, she tilted her head to look at him. Now I'm starting to think maybe there could be something else. David's arm tightened around her. I'd like to be part of that something else. Even knowing what I am, what I've done. Especially knowing what you are, Rachel. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You turned tragedy into purpose, loss into strength. Any man would be lucky to build a life with someone like you. For the first time in 5 years, Rachel allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't built on hatred. A future that included David's laugh, Chloe's recovery, maybe even something resembling a normal family. But even as the fantasy took shape in her mind, reality intruded. Golden Dragon was still out there, still dangerous, still responsible for her father's death. And she was still lying to David about the full extent of her plans. There were secrets she hadn't shared, preparations she'd made that would horrify him if he knew. The partnership was working, but the foundation was built on incomplete truths. Rachel pushed the guilt aside and focused on the warmth of David's arms around her. Tomorrow she could worry about consequences. Tonight, for the first time in years, she felt like she might be something more than just a weapon pointed at her enemies. Tonight, she felt almost human again. 2 weeks after their first kiss, Rachel was beginning to understand why people wrote songs about falling in love. David had a way of making her forget that she was supposed to be a weapon first and a woman second. Their morning strategy meetings had evolved into intimate breakfast conversations, and their late-night planning sessions often ended with her falling asleep in his arms on the office couch. She was getting careless. And careless was dangerous. The realization hit her like cold water when she walked into David's office that Thursday morning to find him hunched over his laptop, his face pale with shock. "David, what's wrong?" He looked up at her with eyes full of confusion and betrayal. "I was reviewing the financial transfers from last month, trying to trace some of the investment sources like you taught me." His voice was carefully controlled. "And I found something interesting." Rachel's blood went cold, but she kept her expression neutral. "What kind of something?" "Tell me about Meridian Holdings, the shell company." Rachel had been so careful to obscure the money trail, but David was more thorough than she'd given him credit for. Meridian Holdings was one of the entities she'd used to funnel money into Grant Technologies, money that ultimately traced back to Golden Dragon Corporation itself. "I'm not familiar with that company," she lied smoothly. "Really? Because according to these records, Meridian Holdings transferred $12 million into our accounts over the past 3 months. And when I dug deeper into their corporate structure," David turned his laptop screen toward her. "Meridian Holdings is owned by a subsidiary of Golden Dragon Corporation." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Rachel felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. "David, I can explain. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the money we've been using to save my company, the money that's paying for Chloe's treatment, came from the same people who supposedly want to kill me." Rachel's mind raced through possible explanations. Ways to spin the truth that wouldn't completely destroy everything they'd built together. But looking at David's face, she realized he was too smart to be fooled by half-truths anymore. "The money did come from Golden Dragon," she admitted quietly. David's face went white. "Jesus Christ, Rachel, are you working for them?" "No." "God, no, David, it's not what you think." "Then what is it? Because right now, it looks like my mysterious partner has been funding our operation with money from the enemy." Rachel moved to the window, needing distance to think clearly. Outside, Chicago continued its daily routine, oblivious to the fact that her world was disintegrating 42 floors above the street. "When my father was killed, I didn't just inherit his legitimate businesses. I inherited everything, including his connections to Golden Dragon." She turned to face David, knowing this conversation would either save their partnership or destroy it completely. He wasn't just investigating them. David, he was working with them. The words hit David like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "My father was their American money laundering operation. For years, he helped them move illegal profits through legitimate shipping companies, real estate investments, tech startups." Rachel's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "When he tried to get out, when he threatened to expose their operations, they killed him." David stood slowly, like an old man. "So, the money you've been using is money they stole from other victims. Money my father helped them launder before his conscience caught up with him." Rachel wrapped her arms around herself. "I've been stealing from them for 5 years, David. Every dollar I've put into your company, every cent that's gone toward Chloe's treatment, it's money I've taken from their accounts. That makes me an accessory to, what? Money laundering, theft. It makes you someone who's using stolen money to save his daughter's life and destroy the people who stole it in the first place." David laughed bitterly. "That's a hell of a rationalization. It's not rationalization, it's justice." "Is it? Or is it just revenge with better marketing?" David moved to his desk, putting physical distance between them. "How much of what you've told me is true, Rachel? Any of it?" The question hit harder than she'd expected. "Everything I told you about my father's murder is true. Everything about Golden Dragon's criminal operations is true. My feelings for you." She paused, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "Those are true too. But you've been lying about the money from day one. I've been protecting you from information that would have stopped you from accepting my help. That wasn't your choice to make." Rachel flinched at the anger in his voice. "You're right. It wasn't. But David, if I'd told you the truth from the beginning, would you have taken my help? Would you have let me save Chloe?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. They both knew the answer. "That's not the point," David said finally. "The point is that you made that decision for me. You took away my choice. The same way Golden Dragon took away my father's choice. The same way they took away yours when they decided to steal your technology and kill you." Rachel moved closer to his desk. "I'm not defending what I did, but I'm not apologizing for it either. That money has kept your daughter alive. with blood on it. Everything has blood on it. David, your Pentagon contracts, your government connections. You think those come from some pure source? You think the military technology you've developed hasn't been used to hurt innocent people? The comparison stung, because it contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. David had always known his work existed in moral gray areas, but he'd convinced himself that the greater good justified the compromises. That's different. Is it? Or is it just easier to accept because you didn't have to look the victims in the eye? David was quiet for a long time, staring at the financial records on his screen. Rachel watched his face, trying to read his thoughts, but his expression had closed off completely. "I need time to think about this," he said finally. "David, no, I need space to process what you've told me, and I need to figure out what this means for Chloe, for the company, for everything." Rachel felt panic rising in her chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I don't know who you are anymore. I thought I was in love with Rachel Zeman Baker, but it turns out she doesn't exist. You're someone else entirely. Someone who's been manipulating me from the beginning." "I haven't been manipulating you. The feelings between us are real. How would I know? How would I know what's real with you and what's just part of whatever game you're playing?" The accusation cut deep, because Rachel couldn't entirely refute it. She had been playing a game, using David as a piece on her chessboard. The fact that she'd fallen in love with him didn't change the fundamental deception at the heart of their relationship. "I never meant for this to happen," she said quietly. "What? Falling in love with your Mark? You're not my Mark. You never were. Then what am I, Rachel? What is this partnership really about?" Rachel looked at the man she'd come to love, seeing the hurt and betrayal in his eyes, and realized that some truths were too devastating to survive intact. "You're the person I chose to trust with everything that matters to me," she said. "But I understand if you can't trust me anymore." David's expression softened slightly, but the distance remained. "I don't know if I can. I don't know if I should." Rachel nodded, feeling something precious slipping away from her. "I'll give you the space you need. But David, the money might be complicated, but Chloe's recovery isn't. Don't let my mistakes hurt her." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, falling in love with you wasn't part of any plan. It was the most unexpected, terrifying, wonderful thing that's ever happened to me." As she left David's office, Rachel felt the familiar weight of isolation settling around her shoulders like an old coat. She'd been alone for so long that she'd forgotten how much it hurt to lose someone who mattered. But the game wasn't over yet, and regardless of what happened between them, Golden Dragon still needed to pay for what they'd done. David didn't call for 3 days. Rachel threw herself into work, monitoring Golden Dragon's activities and planning their next moves, but her concentration was shot. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, hoping it was David. It never was. On Friday evening, she was in her apartment reviewing shipping manifests when her secure phone rang. The caller ID showed David's number, and she answered before the second ring. "David, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the office?" His voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "Of course. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Rachel, bring everything. All the documents, all the evidence. Everything you haven't shown me yet." The line went dead, leaving Rachel staring at her phone with a mixture of hope and dread. David wanted to see everything, which meant he was either ready to forgive her or preparing to end their partnership completely. She gathered the files she'd been holding back, the detailed records of her father's laundering operations, the evidence of David's unknowing involvement with Golden Dragon years before they'd met, and most damaging of all, the documents that would reveal the full scope of what she'd been planning. Grant Technologies' building was mostly empty at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Rachel used her security card to access the executive floor, her footsteps echoing in the marble hallway. David's office door was open, warm light spilling into the corridor. He was standing by the window, still wearing his work clothes, but with his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. The sight of him made her chest tighten with longing and regret. "You came," he said without turning around. "You asked me to. I wasn't sure you would." After the way our last conversation ended, Rachel set her briefcase on the conference table. "I told you I'd give you space, not that I'd disappear." David finally turned to face her, and she was struck by how tired he looked. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually perfect hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the money, about my father's connection to Golden Dragon, about all of it, and I realized I needed to know everything before I could make any decisions." David moved to the conference table and sat down across from her. "No more secrets, Rachel. If we're going to have any kind of future, business or personal, I need the complete truth." Rachel opened her briefcase with hands that were steadier than she felt. "The complete truth might destroy what's left between us. Then we'll deal with that when it happens." She spread the first set of documents across the table. "These are records of my father's money laundering operations. Golden Dragon used Zeman Industries to clean approximately $2 billion over 5 years. David studied the papers, his business mind automatically processing the implications. This is sophisticated, multiple shell companies, international transfers, legitimate businesses as fronts. My father was very good at what he did. Too good, as it turned out. What changed? Why did he try to get out?" Rachel pulled out a photograph. A young girl in a hospital bed, Asian features, maybe 10 years old. Her name was Lin Wei. She was the daughter of a Golden Dragon accountant who tried to skim money from their operations. David picked up the photo, studying the child's face. What happened to her? They used her as leverage against her father, poisoned her slowly, told him they had the antidote but would only provide it if he cooperated completely. Rachel's voice grew hard. "My father was supposed to help them launder the money they'd extorted from her family. When he saw what they were doing to a child, he couldn't go through with it. He tried to save her first, secretly funded her treatment, helped her family escape to Taiwan, but Golden Dragon found out." Rachel pulled out another document. "This is the recording my father made of his final confrontation with Liu Wei." David looked at the transcript, reading his father's words. "I won't be part of hurting children. Find another way to clean your money." Liu Wei's response was chilling. "Then you've chosen your daughter's fate as well. They threatened you. They threatened you too, David." Rachel pulled out the final set of documents, the ones she'd hoped never to show him. "Golden Dragon didn't just randomly target your company for the technology deal. They've been watching you for 3 years, ever since they decided my father knew too much." David's face went pale as he read. "This says they investigated my divorce, Chloe's medical condition, my company's financial problems. They orchestrated your financial crisis, the military contracts you lost last year. Golden Dragon sabotaged those deals. The investors who pulled out of your Series C funding, they were pressured to withdraw." Rachel's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "They created your desperation, David. They made sure you'd be vulnerable when they approached you with their offer. That's impossible. I made business decisions. Market forces. Market forces they manipulated, David. Look at the timeline." Rachel spread out a chart showing the correlation between Golden Dragon's actions and David's business losses. "Every setback you suffered was carefully planned to push you toward accepting their deal." David stared at the evidence, and Rachel watched the realization dawn on his face. Chloe's experimental treatment program, the one that was suddenly available right when I needed it most. Golden Dragon funded it, not out of generosity, as bait. They needed you desperate enough to cooperate, but they also needed to make sure they could control the one thing that mattered most to you. The silence stretched between them as David processed the full scope of the manipulation. His entire crisis, his desperate partnership with Golden Dragon, even Chloe's treatment. All of it had been an elaborate trap designed to use him as a weapon against Rachel's father. "So when you approached me," David said slowly, "you knew all this. I knew you were another victim. I knew they'd been manipulating you the same way they'd manipulated my father. But you didn't tell me. Would you have believed me? David, 3 months ago, you thought Golden Dragon was a legitimate corporation offering to save your company. If I'd walked up to you and claimed they'd orchestrated your entire financial crisis, what would you have done?" David had to admit. She was right. He would have thought she was delusional or working for a competitor trying to sabotage the deal. "There's more, isn't there?" he asked quietly. Rachel pulled out the last folder, the one that contained her complete plan for destroying Golden Dragon. "This is what I've been building toward for 5 years." David read through the documents, and with each page, his expression grew more troubled. "This isn't just corporate espionage, Rachel. This is warfare. Yes. You're planning to destroy their shipping operations, crash their stock price, expose their money laundering to international authorities, and, he looked up at her, frame their leadership for crimes they didn't commit. Crimes they did commit, just not the specific ones we'll provide evidence for. That's not justice, that's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. David closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. Is this what you meant when you said you wanted to destroy them? Complete annihilation. They killed my father. They've been manipulating you for years. They've hurt children, David. How much mercy do they deserve? I'm not talking about mercy. I'm talking about who you become when you cross certain lines. Rachel felt a familiar surge of anger. Who I become? I become someone who stops them from hurting other families the way they hurt ours. And what if I can't be part of that? What if I can't help you become someone I don't recognize? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Rachel looked at the man she'd fallen in love with and realized they were standing at a crossroads that would determine not just their future together, but who they would both become. Then I'll do it alone, she said quietly. The way I always planned to. The confrontation with David left Rachel feeling hollowed out, like someone had scooped away everything soft inside her and left only the hard edges. She spent the weekend in her apartment, staring at surveillance photos of Golden Dragon executives and trying to convince herself that she didn't need anyone's approval to finish what she'd started. But Monday morning brought news that changed everything. Her phone rang at 6 a.m. David's number, she answered on the first ring, her heart hammering with hope that he'd decided to forgive her. Rachel, his voice was strained, barely controlled. I need your help. What's wrong? It's Chloe. She's in the hospital. Something's wrong with her treatment. 20 minutes later, Rachel was running through the corridors of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, following the signs to the pediatric intensive care unit. She found David in the family waiting area, slumped in a plastic chair with his head in his hands. David, what happened? He looked up, and she was shocked by the devastation in his eyes. The doctors say her blood work shows signs of organ failure. The experimental treatment. It's not working anymore. It's making her worse. Rachel sat beside him, instinctively reaching for his hand to her surprise. He didn't pull away. How bad is it? Bad. They're talking about stopping the treatment, but without it, David's voice broke. She has maybe 2 weeks, 3 if we're lucky. There has to be other options, other treatments. There are, in Shanghai, there's a research facility that's been working on gene therapy for her specific condition. David laughed bitterly. Guess who owns the facility? Rachel's blood turned to ice. Golden Dragon. They contacted me this morning, offered to provide the treatment free of charge. David turned to look at her. All I have to do is turn over my complete technology portfolio and testify that you've been trying to steal corporate secrets. The elegant simplicity of the trap was breathtaking. Golden Dragon had waited until Chloe was most vulnerable, then offered the one thing David couldn't refuse while demanding the one thing Rachel couldn't survive. You can't trust them, Rachel said quietly. I know that, but I also can't let my daughter die to protect our partnership. Through the waiting room window, Rachel could see into Chloe's room. The 12-year-old was unconscious, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical precision. She looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, her face pale against the white pillows. Can I see her? David nodded, and they walked into the room together. Up close, Chloe was even more heartbreaking. A child caught in an adult war she didn't understand. Rachel had seen photos of her over the months, but meeting her in person made everything suddenly, devastatingly real. She's beautiful, Rachel whispered. She's everything to me. David smoothed his daughter's hair with gentle fingers. When her mother left, when the business was failing, when everything else fell apart, Chloe was the reason I kept fighting. Rachel watched father and daughter, feeling something crack open in her chest. For 5 years, she'd thought about justice in abstract terms, punishing the guilty, preventing future crimes. But looking at Chloe's innocent face, she realized that sometimes justice wasn't about punishment at all. Sometimes it was about protecting the people who couldn't protect themselves. There's something I haven't told you, she said quietly. David looked at her sharply. More secrets. One more, the biggest one. Rachel pulled out her phone and showed him a bank account balance. This is my father's emergency fund. Money he set aside in case Golden Dragon ever discovered his plans to expose them. David stared at the screen. The number was staggering. More money than most people saw in a lifetime. $3 billion, clean money, legally earned through legitimate businesses before my father ever got involved with Golden Dragon. Rachel pocketed the phone. It's enough to fund any treatment Chloe needs, anywhere in the world, for the rest of her life. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've been planning to use that money for the final phase of my revenge. Once I destroy Golden Dragon's operations, I was going to use it to pay for the legal battles, the media campaigns, the political pressure needed to make sure they never recover. David understood immediately. If you use it to save Chloe, I lose my ability to finish what I started. Golden Dragon survives. Probably stronger than before. Rachel moved to the window, looking out at the city where her father had died 5 years ago. It's a choice between saving your daughter and destroying my father's killers. That's not a choice you should have to make, but it's the choice I have. Rachel turned back to face him. David, I need you to know something. What I feel for you, what I feel for Chloe. It's real. It's the most real thing in my life. But I also need you to understand what I'm giving up. Rachel, let me finish. If I save Chloe, Golden Dragon wins. They keep their operations. They keep hurting people. They keep profiting from other families' desperation. My father died for nothing, and every victim who comes after will be partially my responsibility. David was quiet for a long moment, processing the weight of what she was offering. And if you don't save her, then I become someone who let an innocent child die for the sake of revenge. I become exactly the kind of person my father died fighting against. The moral complexity of the situation was crushing. Rachel had spent 5 years preparing for every possible scenario, except this one, being forced to choose between love and justice, between the future and the past. There's a third option, David said quietly. What? We take their deal, I give them my technology, I testify against you, and Chloe gets the treatment she needs. Rachel felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. David, they'll kill me. Not if you disappear first. You've been hiding for 5 years. You know how to vanish. And then what? You build a life with technology stolen by criminals. Chloe grows up knowing her father made a deal with murderers. Chloe grows up alive. The brutal pragmatism of it was undeniable. David would sacrifice anything. His integrity, his relationship with Rachel, his own moral code, to save his daughter. And Rachel couldn't blame him for it. There's a fourth option, she said finally. I'm listening. We save Chloe first. Use my father's money to get her the best treatment available anywhere in the world. Make sure she's completely recovered and safe. And then we destroy Golden Dragon together. Not for revenge, but to make sure they can't use another sick child as leverage against another desperate parent. David studied her face. That would mean giving up your father's money and probably spending years in legal battles with one of the world's most dangerous criminal organizations. Yes. And you'd do that. Give up everything you've planned for 5 years. Rachel looked at Chloe's sleeping form and felt the last of her father's teachings click into place. The measure of a person isn't what they do when life is easy. It's what they do when they have no good choices left. I'd do it for her. I'd do it for you. Rachel met David's eyes. I'd do it because it's right. For the first time in days, David smiled. Not the practiced business smile she'd grown accustomed to, but something genuine and warm that made her remember why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. Partners, he asked, extending his hand. Rachel took it. Rachel took, feeling the weight of the decision settle around them like armor. Partners, but David, once we start this, there's no going back. Golden Dragon won't just target us. They'll target everyone we care about. Then we'd better make sure we win. The next 72 hours blurred together in a haze of medical consultations, international phone calls, and desperate planning. Rachel had transferred the first installment of her father's emergency fund to secure Chloe's treatment at the Mayo Clinic, where a team of specialists worked around the clock to stabilize her condition before the experimental gene therapy could begin. But on Thursday morning, everything changed again. Rachel was in the hospital cafeteria, subsisting on her 4th cup of coffee in 6 hours, when David found her. His face was ashen, and he was clutching his phone like a lifeline. They took her, he said simply. What? Who took who? Golden Dragon. They took Chloe. David collapsed into the chair across from her. Hospital security footage shows 3 people in medical scrubs entering her room at 4 a.m. They disconnected her monitors, put her on a portable ventilator, and walked out like they belonged there. Rachel felt the world tilt sideways. That's impossible. This is Northwestern Memorial, not some third-world clinic. They have security, cameras, protocols. Money buys a lot of access, Rachel. You should know that better than anyone. The accusation stung, but Rachel pushed past it. Did they leave a message? Demands? David slid his phone across the table. The text was brief and to the point. Your daughter is safe, but requires immediate treatment only available at our Shanghai facility. Bring Rachel Zeman Baker to Pier 19 at midnight tonight. Come alone. Any attempt to involve authorities will result in the child's death. Rachel stared at the message, her mind automatically cataloging the tactical implications. Pier 19 was isolated, perfect for an ambush. The midnight timing gave them barely 12 hours to prepare. The demand for her specifically meant this wasn't about David's technology anymore. It was about finishing what they'd started with her father. It's a trap, she said quietly. Of course it's a trap. But they have my daughter. David, if I go to that pier, they'll kill me, and then they'll probably kill you and Chloe anyway. Maybe. But if I don't go, Chloe dies for certain. Rachel could see the desperate calculation in his eyes. He was already preparing to sacrifice her to save his daughter, and she couldn't blame him for it. In his position, she would probably make the same choice, but that didn't mean she had to make it easy for him. There's another way, she said. I'm listening. We give them what they want, but on our terms? Rachel pulled out her own phone and showed him a banking app. I still have access to most of my father's accounts, not just the clean money, all of it, including the Golden Dragon funds I've been stealing from for 5 years. How much? Enough to buy a small country, David. What if we offered them something they want more than revenge? Like what? Like everything. All the money, all the evidence, complete capitulation. Rachel leaned forward. But here's the thing. The transfer protocols require physical presence at specific banking locations. If they want everything I've stolen from them, they'll have to let me live long enough to authorize the transfers? David studied her face. And during that time, we make sure Chloe is safe, and we document everything they do. Every crime, every threat, every illegal transfer. We give the FBI and Interpol enough evidence to destroy them completely. That's assuming they honor the deal. They won't, but they'll keep us alive until they have the money. And that's all the time we need. David was quiet for a long moment, staring at his coffee. Rachel, if we do this, there's a good chance neither of us survives. I know. And you're willing to take that risk for a child you barely know. Rachel thought about Chloe's face in the hospital bed, about David's desperate love for his daughter, about her own father's voice on that final recording. The measure of a person isn't what they do when life is easy. I'm willing to take that risk because it's right. Because my father taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people you choose to protect. David's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry for doubting you, for not trusting you, for... We don't have time for apologies. Rachel stood, her decision crystallizing. We have 10 hours to plan the most important operation of our lives. They spent the afternoon in David's office, drawing up contingency plans and preparing for every scenario they could think of. Rachel had contacts in federal law enforcement, people who'd been trying to build cases against Golden Dragon for years. David had military connections who could provide tactical support if things went sideways. But as the sun set over Chicago, Rachel found herself thinking about simpler things, about the first time David had smiled at her in the Golden Room, about falling asleep in his arms after their late-night planning sessions, about the future they'd started to imagine together before everything fell apart. David, she said, as they prepared to leave for the pier. Yeah, if we don't make it out of this, I want you to know that these past few months have been the happiest of my life. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Hope that there could be something after revenge, something worth building instead of destroying. David moved to where she stood by the window, gathering her into his arms like he had so many times before. We're going to make it out of this, Rachel. All 3 of us. How can you be so sure? Because we're not just fighting for revenge anymore. We're fighting for family. The word hung in the air between them, carrying the weight of everything they'd discovered about each other, everything they'd chosen to forgive, Everything they'd decided was worth risking their lives to protect. At 11:30 p.m., they stood at the entrance to Pier 19, watching the dark water of Lake Michigan lap against the concrete. In the distance, they could see lights on a yacht, Golden Dragon's floating fortress, far enough from shore to avoid most surveillance, but close enough to make their demands clear. "Last chance to change your mind," David said. Rachel checked the recording devices hidden in her clothes, confirmed that her GPS tracker was active, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. Then she thought about Chloe, somewhere on that yacht, depending on two adults to be smarter and braver than their enemies. "My father once told me that the hardest lesson in life is learning when to forgive the unforgivable," she said. "I thought he was talking about showing mercy to enemies. And now I think he was talking about forgiving yourself for the choices you have to make to protect the people you love." Rachel took David's hand and started walking toward the pier where their enemies waited. Behind them, federal agents moved into position in the shadows. Ahead of them, a sick child waited for rescue. And between them, something that had started as partnership and grown into love faced its final test. "Whatever happens," David said quietly, "I love you. I love you too. Now let's go save our daughter." 2 years later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago, as Rachel adjusted her witness testimony notes one final time. Today was the last day of the Golden Dragon trial, the culmination of 2 years of legal battles that had dismantled one of the world's most sophisticated criminal organizations. "You ready for this?" David asked, straightening his tie in the hallway mirror. "As ready as I'll ever be to watch Liu Wei get sentenced to life in prison." The night at Pier 19 felt like a lifetime ago. The rescue operation had been a success. Chloe had been safely recovered. Golden Dragon's leadership had been arrested. And Rachel and David had survived to testify about everything they'd witnessed. But the real victory had come in the months that followed, as their recorded evidence had led to a massive international investigation that exposed Golden Dragon's operations in 12 countries. "Miss Zeman-Baker," a court clerk approached them. "They're ready for your final testimony." Rachel nodded and turned to David. "Kiss for luck. Always." His lips were warm and familiar, carrying the promise of a future they'd fought so hard to build. When they separated, Rachel felt centered and ready to face whatever came next. The courtroom was packed with journalists, federal agents, and victims' families, people whose lives had been torn apart by Golden Dragon's crimes, but who were finally seeing justice served. Rachel took the witness stand for what she hoped would be the last time, facing the jury that would decide Liu Wei's fate. "Miss Zeman-Baker," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court about the Zeman-Weiming Foundation and its mission?" "The foundation was established to help families victimized by corporate crimes," Rachel replied, her voice clear and strong. "We provide legal assistance, financial support, and resources for those fighting against organizations that use money and power to hurt innocent people." "And how many families has the foundation helped in the past 2 years?" "Over 300. We've funded medical treatments, legal battles, and relocation assistance for families worldwide." Rachel's eyes found David in the gallery, sitting next to a healthy, vibrant Chloe who was now 14 and completely cancer-free. The experimental gene therapy had worked. But more importantly, she'd grown up knowing that her father had chosen to do the right thing, even when it was the hardest choice of his life. "Mrs. Zeman-Baker, what would you say to those who argue that your foundation is simply using stolen money to buy redemption?" It was the question Rachel had been expecting, the one that cut to the heart of everything they'd built. "I would say that money doesn't have a moral character. People do. Every dollar the foundation spends was taken from criminals who used it to hurt innocent families. Now that same money is being used to heal the damage they caused." Rachel looked directly at Liu Wei, who sat at the defendant's table with cold, unrepentant eyes. "I can't bring my father back, but I can make sure his death led to something meaningful." The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Liu Wei's defense attorney stood for cross-examination, but after 2 years of testimony and overwhelming evidence, there wasn't much left to challenge. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all counts. As the judge read the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole, Rachel felt a weight she'd carried for 7 years finally lift from her shoulders. Justice had been served, but more importantly, It had been served without becoming revenge. Later that evening, the three of them sat in the garden behind David and Rachel's house in Lincoln Park, watching Chloe practice violin under the string lights David had hung between the trees. The music was beautiful, complex classical pieces that spoke to the sophisticated young woman Chloe was becoming. "She's gotten so good," Rachel mused, leaning against David's shoulder on the porch swing. "She says she wants to audition for Juilliard next year. She should. She's talented enough." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter, because that's what Chloe had become. Their daughter in every way that mattered, lose herself in the music. Rachel had formally adopted her 6 months ago, and the teenager had taken to calling her mom with an ease that still made Rachel's heart skip. "Any regrets?" David asked quietly. "About what?" "About choosing this life instead of the one you'd planned, about forgiving instead of destroying." Rachel considered the question seriously. The old Rachel, the one driven purely by revenge, might have regretted letting her enemies live, but watching Chloe play violin in their garden, knowing that hundreds of families were sleeping safely because of the foundation's work, feeling David's arm around her as they planned their wedding for next spring, she couldn't imagine wanting any other life. "The only thing I regret is that it took me so long to understand what my father was really trying to teach me, which was that the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who choose to build something beautiful from the broken pieces." Chloe finished her piece and looked over at them with a grin that was pure teenage mischief. "Are you two being all romantic and philosophical again?" "Guilty as charged," David called back. "Gross. I'm going inside to call Madison." Chloe packed up her violin with the efficiency of someone who'd been playing for years. "But first, Mom, can I ask you something?" The casual use of the word still made Rachel's chest tighten with happiness. "Of course, sweetheart. Do you think Grandpa Zamin would have liked me?" It was a question Chloe asked sometimes, about the grandfather she'd never met but whose legacy had shaped so much of their family's story. Rachel always gave it serious consideration. "I think he would have loved you completely. He always said that family wasn't about blood. It was about the people you choose to protect and cherish." "Good. I like knowing I would have made him proud." Chloe disappeared into the house, leaving David and Rachel alone under the stars. In the distance, the Chicago skyline glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and full of possibility. "She's going to change the world, you know," David said. "She already has. She changed ours." Rachel thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first day she'd served David coffee at the Golden Room to this moment, swinging gently in their garden with their daughter's music still echoing in the air. It hadn't been the path she'd planned, but it was infinitely better than anything she could have imagined. David. 3 words in Chinese changed our lives forever. "He knows the truth," David repeated, remembering that pivotal moment in the restaurant. "No," Rachel smiled, turning to face him. The 3 words that really changed everything were, "I love you." David's kiss tasted like coming home, like second chances, like the promise that some broken things could be made whole again through forgiveness and love. When they finally separated, Rachel rested her forehead against his and whispered the words that had become their family motto. Sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, to learn that the greatest strength isn't in destroying our enemies. It's in choosing to love the unlovable, forgive the unforgivable, and build something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. In the distance, Lake Michigan reflected the city lights like scattered stars, and Rachel Zeman Baker Grant finally understood what her father had meant about transformation. The girl who had planned revenge had become a woman who chose redemption. The waitress who had served coffee with hatred in her heart had become a mother who served love with every breath. And the 3 words that had started as a lie to destroy an enemy had become the foundation of a truth that would last forever. Real love is born when we choose to forgive the unforgivable and discover that sometimes our greatest enemies become our greatest family.